Golden sunlight spills across neat identical lawns, matching shutters, matching fences, matching families. And then the moving truck. The only black family on the street steps out. Action. Marcus Carter, 38, lifts a box from the truck, sweat on his brow, smile calm. His wife, Danielle, 35, holds their daughter Ava, 12, close. The neighbors pause mid-watering, mid-walking, mid-breathing. He feels the stare before anyone speaks. Thought Marcus. So this is the neighborhood, clean, quiet, watching us like a foreign object dropped on their lawn. Emotion. Danielle grips his arm, not in fear but in warning. Dialogue. Danielle, smile baby, we're the new show in town. Marcus, soft laugh, let him watch, we're home. A golf cart appears, the HOA president's chariot. Preston Hale, 50s, steps out, white polo with the HOA logo embroidered too proudly. Cold smile, eyes scanning them like a checklist. Preston, welcome to Magnolia Ridge, we run a tight community here. Marcus extends a hand, Preston doesn't shake it. It's the first sign but not the last. A white envelope on the porch the next morning. HOA warning, your vehicle violates community aesthetics. Black trucks are not permitted in driveways. Marcus reads the letter twice. Black trucks or black owners. He doesn't say it out loud, not yet. Danielle, baby, it's been 24 hours. Marcus, yeah, they're fast. At sunset, Ava rides her bike down the street. A neighbor stops her gently. Neighbor woman, sugary voice, steel eyes. You lost, sweetie, who are you visiting? Ava freezes. Marcus sees it from the porch and walks over slowly. Marcus, she lives here. The woman's smile cracks. Neighbor, oh, I just assumed. Marcus steps closer, soft voice but solid spine. Assumed what? She backs away, no answer, just guilt evaporating into the night. Emotional beat. Ava hugs her dad harder that night. Second letter. Third. Fifth. 10 by end of week. Grass too tall. Mailbox too dull. Door color non-compliant. Basketball hoop lowering visual harmony. Ava's music disturbing the environment. Marcus starts a binder, dates, photos, copies. Danielle records videos quietly. If they want war, they picked the wrong family. They walk into the HOA clubhouse, 40 chairs, 40 faces, all starring. Preston stands at the front, fake sympathy dripping. Preston, we must discuss the disruptions since the Carters arrived. A woman whispers loudly. Property value dipped 2% already. Danielle's jaw tightens. Marcus places a hand on hers. Marcus out loud. We follow every rule you send, what else do you want? A man in the back answers. For you to fit the neighborhood standard. Room claps softly. Danielle's heart breaks but her eyes harden. They targeted the only black family on the street. What they didn't know was that the Carters came prepared to fight back. Danielle checks the HOA portal. She sees it. A private message thread between 4 board members, accidentally visible. They don't match the culture here. Find violations to push them out. Black families attract the wrong element. Make it impossible for them. She screenshots everything. Saves, exports emails to Marcus. Danielle shaking. We got them. Marcus nods once. Marcus, war starts now. The Carters had lived in Magnolia Ridge for barely 2 weeks when the police showed up for the first time. Red and blue lights washed across the white fences, cutting into the darkness. Marcus opened the door calmly, Ava standing behind him in pajamas, eyes wide with fear. The officer cleared his throat. Sir, we received a noise complaint, said you were playing loud music and causing a disturbance. Marcus blinked. Officer, my daughter was doing homework, my wife was reading. We don't even own speakers big enough to disturb anyone. The officer looked embarrassed. He already knew the truth. I figured, but once we get a call, we have to respond. Across the street, silhouettes stood behind blinds. Watching, waiting, Danielle stepped forward. Who called? The officer hesitated. Anonymous, she exhaled sharply. Of course. The next night it happened again. This time it was a domestic disturbance, then a suspicious activity report, then a call about possible trespassing. Each time the Carters were inside their home doing absolutely nothing wrong. Police showed up 4 times in 7 days. Ava started sleeping with her lamp on. Danielle began recording everything on her phone, each knock, each conversation. Marcus felt something shifting inside him, not anger, not fear, a cold, focused resolve. One afternoon, while Marcus worked in the garage, a patrol car rolled up again. Same officer as before. "Mr. Carter, I'm going to be real with you. Someone on the HOA board is making these calls. We can't ignore them, but it's obvious what this is." Marcus looked up slowly. Racist harassment. The officer's silence was confirmation. Inside, Danielle scrolled through the HOA community app. Dozens of posts had disappeared, comments removed, messages edited. Someone was covering their tracks, but the Carters already had screenshots, enough to burn the board to the ground. 2 days later, another envelope arrived. A $750 fine for multiple police disturbances caused by resident misconduct. Danielle stared at the letter, laughing in disbelief. "They call the cops on us, then fine us for the cops coming." Marcus folded the letter and slid it into his binder. Good, let them keep digging their own hole. But the HOA wasn't done. At 3 a.m. on a cold Tuesday morning, someone banged on the door, hard, violent. Panic shot through Ava's chest. Danielle grabbed her phone. Marcus flung the door open. Preston Hale stood there with 2 HOA board members and a flashlight aimed straight into Marcus's face. Preston didn't even greet him. "Your family has caused 6 police responses. The board voted and we're issuing a final warning. Continued disruption will trigger immediate legal action and removal procedures." Marcus's voice stayed calm. "Removal from what? Our own home?" Preston stepped closer. "We have authority to enforce community standards. You're lowering our neighborhood's stability. People are uncomfortable." Marcus stared straight into his eyes. "Uncomfortable because we exist here." Preston clenched his jaw. "You said that, not me." Danielle's phone was recording the entire exchange. The next morning, a letter was taped to their door. HOA notice, public hearing for behavior-based eviction. Danielle looked at Marcus. "They want us gone." Marcus answered without blinking. "Then we'll give them something they didn't expect." He grabbed his binder, the printed screenshots, the violation letters, the police reports, the video footage, all of it. He placed everything into a single thick folder and handed it to Danielle. "This ends," he said quietly, "with the whole neighborhood hearing the truth." When the night of the hearing arrived, residents filled the HOA hall. Some came to watch drama, others out of curiosity, a few out of malice. Preston stood at the front, smug, ready to perform. "We are here," Preston announced, "to address ongoing disturbances caused by the Carter family." Marcus walked up the aisle slowly, placing the folder on the podium. Preston froze. "You're not running this meeting," Marcus said. "Not tonight." The room went silent. Marcus turned to the crowd. "For weeks, my family has been targeted, harassed, and lied about. You want answers, here they are." Danielle connected her phone to the projector. The private racist messages lit up the screen. Gasps broke through the room. One board member tried to stand, but Lydia Chen, who had quietly stepped in that evening after hearing everything, placed a hand on his shoulder, stopping him. Marcus continued. "Here are the fake police reports. Here are the recordings. Here are the fines you sent us for your own harassment. You want to talk about disruptions? Let's talk about yours." Preston went pale. A neighbor finally shouted from the back, "This is racism." Another chimed in, "This is abuse of power." Preston tried to speak, but Lydia stepped forward, calm and firm. "This meeting is over, and Mr. Hale, by the way, what you've done isn't just unethical, it's criminal." Marcus put a hand on her arm. "This is just the beginning." The room erupted, shouts, arguments, shock. The board members slipped out the side door. The Carters walked out together, heads high, leaving the hall buzzing with chaos behind them. And as they stepped into the cool night air, Marcus finally allowed himself a small, tired smile. "They wanted us out," he said softly. "Now they're the ones who should be worried." Danielle squeezed his hand. Ava hugged their legs. The war had officially begun. The fallout from the HOA hearing spread through Magnolia Ridge like wildfire. By morning, the private chat screenshots were everywhere, group texts, neighborhood Facebook pages, even forwarded to people who had moved away years ago. Every resident now knew exactly what Preston Hale and his board had been doing. Some were shocked, some pretended to be shocked, others said nothing at all. Marcus and Danielle watched it all unfold from their living room. Ava sat beside them, knees pulled up, scrolling through comments. "People are defending us now," she whispered. "They're actually defending us," Marcus exhaled slowly. "They see the truth, that's all we needed." But Preston wasn't the type to crumble quietly. That afternoon, his SUV rolled slowly past the Carters' house, tinted windows hiding his eyes. Danielle saw it from the kitchen window. "He's not done," she murmured. Marcus nodded. "Not even close." That evening, the Carters' internet suddenly cut out. Their security cameras went offline. Even their water pressure dropped. Danielle checked her phone and gasped. Marcus, the HOA app says we've been fined for inappropriate public conduct. They're still trying. Marcus opened the door to check the power box and stopped in his tracks. Spray paint dark red streaked across the side of their garage. Go back to where you belong. Ava's scream echoed behind him. Danielle grabbed her daughter and held her tightly. Marcus scanned the street. HOA board member Carl Benson stood across the road, pretending to water his lawn. The smirk on his face said everything. Marcus walked forward slowly, his voice level and deadly calm. You did this, Carl shrugged. Can't prove it, and he walked inside. That night, Marcus filed a police report not just for vandalism but for targeted harassment. When the officers arrived, they were more serious this time. One of them, Officer Daniels, recognized the pattern. Sir, this is coordinated and it's escalating. Danielle swallowed hard. What do we do? Officer Daniels looked at Marcus. You keep documenting and you prepare, because once this hits the DA's office, they'll want everything. The next morning brought another shock. Someone had created a fake Facebook account using Marcus's name, posting aggressive comments about neighbors. The account was spreading fast, trying to make him look unstable. Ava saw it first. Dad, this isn't you. They made a whole page. Danielle's hands trembled. They're trying to frame you. They want the community to turn on us again. Marcus closed his eyes, steadying himself. Not this time. Across town, Lydia Chen, who had attended the hearing, called Marcus. I saw the garage, she said without greeting. And the fake account. You ready to take this beyond HOA drama? Marcus didn't hesitate. Tell me what we need. Lydia arrived that afternoon with a thick folder and a fire in her eyes. We're filing a civil rights complaint, she said. Housing discrimination, harassment, abuse of authority, and retaliation. Danielle sat straight. They won't survive that. Lydia nodded. No, they won't, but you need to be prepared. This gets bigger. Court, news, maybe state investigators. Ava peeked into the room. Does that mean everyone will know? Marcus placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. They already know, baby. Now they're going to know the truth. Later that week, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Dozens of residents attended, more than ever before. Marcus, Danielle, and Lydia sat in the front row. Preston walked in wearing a suit, jaw clenched, eyes cold. He looked like a man drowning and trying to pull others down with him. Preston slammed a stack of papers onto the podium. These allegations are false, manufactured, and malicious. This family is destroying our community. The crowd murmured. Someone yelled, we saw the messages, Preston. Another shouted, you targeted them because they're black. The room was splitting, tension crackling like electricity. Lydia stood, her voice calm and precise. Mr. Hale, you should stop talking. Everything you say is admissible. Preston glared at her. You don't belong here either. The room gasped. Danielle whispered, he just can't help himself. Marcus stepped forward. You tried to push us out. You used the police as weapons. You used fines as threats. You used racism as policy. Preston barked, you're just playing victim. Marcus leaned closer. Then why did you hide the messages? Silence swallowed the room. Preston suddenly pointed at Marcus, voice cracking. They're trouble. Look at the police reports. Lydia lifted a folder. The police reports you filed anonymously using a board email address. A wave of shock rippled through the crowd. Carl Benson slipped out the back door. Marcus spoke once more, steady and unshakable. We're not leaving, and when this is over, you will. The room erupted, some arguing, some shouting, some filming. Preston stormed out, the board scattered, but something had changed. The community wasn't on his side anymore. By the end of the meeting, 3 board members had resigned. Neighbors approached the Carters quietly, some apologizing, some too ashamed to speak, but the shift was undeniable. That night, Marcus stood on the porch, breathing in the cool air. It's happening, he whispered. The truth is finally beating them. Danielle slipped her hand into his. This isn't over, but we're winning. Ava hugged them both. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. Inside, Lydia texted Marcus a single line. DA reviewing the case. Things are about to move fast. Marcus looked out at the street, still silent, waiting. He whispered, good, let it move. The war Preston started was turning into a legal firestorm. And this time, the Carters weren't defending themselves. They were going on offense. The day the district attorney's office contacted Marcus, everything in Magnolia Ridge shifted. Not quietly, not slowly, like a pressure valve finally snapping open. Danielle was cooking dinner when the call came. Marcus listened, nodding slowly, eyes widening as the DA spoke. When he hung up, he leaned against the counter, breathing hard. Danielle rushed over. What did they say? They're launching a full investigation, Marcus answered. Civil rights violations, harassment, racial targeting, abuse of authority. The HOA is officially under review. Ava peeked around the corner. Does that mean they're going to jail? Marcus knelt down, brushing hair from her forehead. It means they can't hide anymore. News traveled fast. Within hours, the HOA chat groups lit up. Some residents defended Preston, claiming the investigation was overblown. Most fell silent, waiting to see which way the wind would blow. A few reached out privately to apologize to the Carters. Apologies were nice, but they didn't erase what was done. Lydia arrived that night with her laptop and 2 cups of coffee. She didn't bother knocking. She walked straight in like family. "We need everything organized," she said. "Every letter, every video, every screenshot. The DA wants this presented clean." Marcus opened his binder, a thick monster of dates, violations, photos, and racism hidden behind community rules. Danielle brought the printed chat logs. Ava brought her phone with videos of police knocking at the door. Lydia stared at the table piled with evidence. This is enough to shut down the entire board. But the HOA wasn't going down quietly. The very next morning, a new letter appeared on the Carters' door, not printed, not official. A handwritten threat. "Drop the charges or lose everything." Danielle's hands shook as she passed it to Marcus. "This is getting dangerous," she whispered. Marcus folded the letter carefully. "Then they're scared, good." He took it straight to the police station. Officer Daniels scanned the handwriting and swore under his breath. "This is intimidation, and it matches the style of other anonymous letters we've received." He tapped the desk. "We're opening a case." But things escalated again, faster and uglier. That night, someone slashed the tires on Marcus's truck. The next morning, someone dumped a bag of dead fish in their flower bed. Ava found them first and cried. Danielle hugged her tightly, whispering, "They won't break us, baby, they won't." Marcus installed more cameras, hidden ones this time. He wasn't waiting for luck, he was building a trap. 2 days later, it worked. At 2:14 a.m., the cameras caught Carl Benson creeping onto the Carters' property with a can of spray paint. He wrote the same words as before, "Go back," before sprinting off like a coward. At 7 a.m., Marcus sent the footage to Lydia and Officer Daniels. By afternoon, Carl was in handcuffs. News spread again. This time the neighborhood didn't whisper, they panicked. People realized what the Carters had been saying all along. Their HOA was not strict, it was rotten. Preston Hale tried to distance himself immediately. He held a public live stream from his living room. "This is tragic," he said solemnly. "A terrible incident, but I had no part in it." But the cracks were showing. He looked exhausted, frantic, terrified. 3 days later, the DA subpoenaed the HOA's financial records. Preston refused. The DA sent deputies to retrieve them. By evening, footage leaked online of Preston standing in his driveway, shouting at officers, face red, veins bulging. The caption read, "HOA president loses control." It went viral. Meanwhile, Marcus's life started looking like a documentary. Reporters knocked on his door. Documentarians emailed him. Neighbors stared with new awareness, some supportive, some ashamed, some bitter. Danielle told him people are uncomfortable. Marcus answered, "Good, maybe for the first time they're uncomfortable for the right reasons." Then came the day everything snapped. A letter arrived from the state. Official notice: Magnolia Ridge HOA is suspended pending investigation. No board meetings. No fines. No authority. The neighborhood had no ruler anymore. It felt lighter but also unstable, like a table missing legs. That evening, the HOA clubhouse held a mandatory investigative hearing. Residents crowded in, some angry, some curious, some guilty. Preston walked in last, escorted by his attorney. The man looked smaller than ever, like someone who'd lost his costume and didn't know how to act without it. Lydia presented the evidence. One item at a time: screenshots, videos, police logs, secret chats, racist language, harassment patterns, everything. Marcus didn't speak at all, he didn't need to. Preston, sweating through his shirt, tried one last defense. "You're twisting everything. I acted for the safety of this neighborhood." A resident stood up. "Safety? My kids saw the police here 3 times a week because of your lies." Another shouted, "You targeted them because they were black." Another, "You deserve jail." The room turned into a storm. Preston snapped, "You don't get it, people like them ruin." The words froze in his throat. His lawyer pulled him back. The room gasped. A mother covered her child's ears. Someone started recording. Preston stammered, I didn't mean." But he did, everyone knew it. The investigator ended the meeting instantly. "This will proceed to a full civil rights prosecution." Preston's world was collapsing. Marcus watched in silence. Danielle slipped her fingers between his. "We're almost there," she whispered. As they walked out, a neighbor they barely knew approached them slowly. She looked embarrassed, nervous. I'm so sorry," she said softly. "I never said anything before. I should have. Thank you for standing up." Marcus nodded gently. Everyone gets a chance to do better. Back home under the porch light, Ava hugged her father tightly. "Daddy, is it almost over?" Marcus looked up at the dark sky, quiet, heavy, waiting. "No," he said, "it's about to get louder." Because now the courtroom was waiting. And the real fight was about to begin. The courthouse steps felt heavier than anything the Carters had climbed before. News vans lined the street, microphones poking over barricades, reporters whispering the family's name like they were characters in a movie. Ava squeezed Danielle's hand tightly as they walked, her small fingers trembling. Marcus didn't tremble, not today. Today was the day he had carried that binder for. The day all the harassment, all the police calls, all the vandalism, all the whispered slurs and weaponized fines finally meant something. Lydia met them at the entrance, her expression sharp and focused. "Everything lined up," she said. "The DA is going hard. Preston's lawyer already tried to negotiate a deal, but the state refused." Danielle's eyes widened. "So this is really happening?" Lydia nodded. "Oh, it's happening." Inside the courtroom, Preston Hale sat at the defense table, shoulders slumped, jaw tight. Without his HOA polo, without his authority, without his loyal board to back him, he looked small, weak, fragile. Carl Benson sat behind him, avoiding everyone's eyes. Two more former board members huddled in the corner like children waiting for punishment. As the Carters entered, Preston's eyes flicked up. He glared with a mix of hatred and pure desperation. Danielle met his stare without flinching. Marcus didn't even look at him. Ava stuck close to her father's side, scanning the crowded room. Residents filled the benches. Some came to support the Carters, some came out of guilt. Some came because, deep down, they wanted to see Preston fall. The judge entered, the courtroom fell silent. The district attorney began slowly, projecting evidence onto a screen. Racist messages, secret planning to target the Carters, fake violations, the anonymous police calls traced back to HOA board emails. Every new piece of evidence felt like a stone dropped into still water, shock spreading across the room. When the vandalism footage played, the red spray paint on the garage, the courtroom gasped. Carl Benson shrank in his seat. Marcus watched everything with controlled calm. Danielle wiped tears from her eyes. Ava leaned into her mother's shoulder. Then the DA shifted focus. "And now the most troubling evidence," she said. A clip played, Preston at the HOA meeting, red-faced, screaming. "People like them ruin." The judge slammed her gavel. Residents shouted. Someone yelled, "That's who he really is." Another shouted, "Lock him up." Preston's lawyer buried his face in his hands. Danielle whispered, "He hung himself." Lydia nodded, "And he handed us the rope." Then it was time for the Carters to speak. Danielle went first. Her voice was soft, but it filled the room. "We didn't move here to fight," she said. "We moved here so our daughter could feel safe. Instead, she learned what it feels like to be hunted in your own neighborhood." A tear slid down Ava's cheek. Danielle continued, "We followed every rule, paid every fee, tried to fit into a community that never wanted us, but we stayed. Because leaving would teach our daughter that hate gets to decide where we live, it doesn't." People murmured agreement. Even those who once stayed silent now nodded, some ashamed, some inspired. Marcus took the stand next. He placed his hands on the wood rail. His voice was deep, steady, firm. "I documented everything, every violation, every call, every insult, not because I wanted revenge, but because the truth matters. And because someone had to stand up not just for us, but for every family who's been pushed out, silenced, threatened, or intimidated by people in power who think rules give them the right to discriminate." Preston avoided his gaze, staring at the floor. Marcus continued, "We didn't start this fight, but we finished it the right way, through truth, through patience, and through the law." The courtroom erupted into applause before the judge silenced them again. Preston's turn came. He rose stiffly, eyes darting, voice shaking. "I never meant for any of this. I was trying to maintain standards. The neighborhood was changing and—" He stopped, even he heard what the sentence really meant. His lawyer tugged his sleeve. "Sit down, Mr. Hale." The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Hale, after reviewing the evidence, your actions clearly violated civil rights protections. You abused your authority, weaponized policy, and targeted a family on the basis of race." Preston swallowed hard. Carl Benson lowered his head as the judge continued. "Charges will proceed. Restrictions placed on the HOA will remain until further notice." A loud, whispered wave passed through the crowd. When court adjourned, chaos erupted. Reporters rushed forward. Microphones flew toward Marcus and Danielle. Residents surrounded them, some apologizing, some thanking them, some crying. Ava grabbed her father's hand. Daddy, did we win? Marcus knelt beside her. We won today, he said softly, but there's still more to fix. As they walked out of the courthouse, cameras flashing, Lydia leaned toward Marcus. Part 1 is done, she said. Now we go after HOA control. Danielle blinked. Control. Lydia smirked. Preston's seat is empty. That means elections are coming, and you too. You're not just fighting this HOA anymore, you're about to lead it. Marcus laughed under his breath. Me run an HOA. Lydia shrugged. Better you than the monsters who came before. But the moment they reached home, they found a surprise waiting. A crowd of neighbors stood on their front lawn holding signs, not angry signs but supportive ones. We stand with the Carters. No more hate in Magnolia Ridge. Preston does not speak for U.S. A woman stepped forward, nervous but determined. If you run for the HOA board, we'll vote for you, she said. We need someone who actually cares about the community. Marcus and Danielle exchanged a stunned look. Ava beamed. Daddy, you could be the boss. Marcus lifted her into his arms, one step at a time. But he knew something deep inside. They weren't just surviving Magnolia Ridge anymore. The weeks after the courthouse hearing felt like the neighborhood had been hit by a storm. Not the kind that leaves branches on the ground or shingles missing, but the kind that changes the air, changes how people look at each other, changes what can never be ignored again. Magnolia Ridge wasn't silent anymore. Conversations buzzed on sidewalks, at mailboxes, in driveways. Neighbors who used to glance away when the Carters walked by were suddenly waving, offering help, dropping off meals, thanking them. Some apologies were awkward, some sincere, some overdue. Marcus didn't accept all of them, but he listened. Danielle noticed something too. People finally looked Ava in the eye with kindness instead of suspicion. The child who once rode her bike under cold stares now rode through the neighborhood with friends chasing behind her, laughing. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. One morning, notices were posted everywhere. Special HOA election. New board MEMBRS NEEDED. All RSIDNTS ENCOURAGD2 run. The community center buzzed as people gathered around the flyer. Lydia smirked as she read it. This is Preston's nightmare, she whispered to Marcus. A neighborhood he can't control anymore. Marcus crossed his arms. They're going to push me to run. Lydia shrugged. They should. You're the only one who kept records, stayed calm, and actually knows HOA law now. But Marcus shook his head. I just wanted to live here, not run anything. Danielle joined them, wiping her hands on a dish towel. I know, but running isn't about power. It's about making sure what happened to us can never happen again. Ava ran to Marcus and tugged on his sleeve. Daddy, if you're in charge, nobody can be mean like Preston, right? Marcus crouched down. I don't want to be in charge, sweetheart. Ava frowned. But you already were brave, so maybe you're supposed to be. Her words stuck with him all day. Later that afternoon, a neighbor named Martha, one of the oldest residents, knocked on their door. She was the first person to ever bring them a welcome pie, back when everyone else pretended they didn't see them. She held a stack of signatures. These are from people who want you to run, she said gently. Not because you're loud, not because you're angry, because you were the only one who stood up. Marcus looked at the papers, nearly 50 names. Martha, I don't know if I'm the right person. She looked at him over her glasses. Marcus, you already proved you are. He stared at the signatures for a long moment. That evening he sat on the porch as the sunset washed the neighborhood in gold. The same street that once felt like enemy territory now felt possible, not perfect, but possible. Danielle sat beside him, her head on his shoulder. Whatever you choose, she whispered, we're with you. Ava burst through the door and threw her arms around his neck. Please run, she said, so nobody hurts us again. Marcus kissed her forehead. I'll think about it. But deep down, he already knew. Election day came quickly. The community center buzzed with tension and excitement. Folding chairs were packed. Residents filled every corner. Some of Preston's old supporters were there too, but quieter now, less confident, forced to face what their silence had allowed. The candidates took their place up front. A young couple running on community unity. A retired teacher promising fair rules. And then Marcus Carter. Whispers rippled through the crowd when he stepped forward, not because they doubted him, because they expected him. The moderator handed him the microphone. Marcus looked at the faces in front of him, people who judged him before knowing him, people who stood with him when things got ugly, people who stayed silent, people who apologized, people who learned, people still learning. He cleared his throat. I didn't want to run, he began honestly. I moved here to give my family peace, stability, a place where my daughter could grow up without feeling like a stranger in her own home. A few people lowered their heads. But instead, Marcus continued, my family was targeted, we were harassed, lied about, put in danger, not because we broke rules, but because of who we are. A murmur passed through the room. And I won't sugarcoat it, it hurt, it broke trust, it scared my daughter, it nearly drove us out, but we stayed, we fought, because no family should feel unwelcome in a place they call home. Danielle wiped a tear, Ava watched him proudly. Marcus continued, voice steady. If I'm elected, this HOA won't be used as a weapon anymore. No family, black, white, Latino, Asian, old, young, single parents, new homeowners, nobody will be judged before they're known. The crowd leaned in. And if you don't vote for me, he added softly, that's fine, but vote for someone who believes in fairness. Vote for someone who sees people, not problems. He handed the microphone back. Silence, then applause, soft at first, then louder, rising until the whole room clapped. Even people who stayed neutral stood up. Across the hall, Preston Hale watched from a corner, no longer on the board, no longer in power, no longer feared. His eyes burned with bitterness, but his voice was gone. His authority was gone. His neighborhood had moved on without him. Voting began, ballots dropped into boxes. People waited anxiously, whispering predictions. Children played on the steps. Reporters hovered outside. When the moderator finally emerged with the results, tension filled the air. She cleared her throat. For the new HOA board, the top elected candidate by a large margin is Marcus Carter. The room exploded in cheers. Danielle hugged him tightly. Ava jumped into his arms. Lydia laughed triumphantly. Neighbors clapped his back, shook his hand, thanked him. Marcus raised his daughter into the air. We did it, he whispered. Ava grinned, Daddy, you're the president. He laughed, guess I am. That night the Carters stood in front of their home, porch light glowing softly. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful in a way that felt earned. For the first time since moving in, Marcus didn't feel like the street was watching him. He felt like the street was with him. Danielle leaned into his side. It's over, she whispered. Marcus shook his head gently. No, it's better than over, it's changed. Ava chased fireflies across the lawn, laughing loudly, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. Marcus smiled at the sound. The fear that once lived in that laughter was gone. As the night deepened, neighbors walked by and waved, not out of obligation, but out of respect, out of new understanding, out of hope that things could truly improve. Danielle whispered, you did this. Marcus shook his head, we all did. She smiled, but you let it. Across the street, the Geo-Back spray paint had long been washed away. The garage was freshly painted, but the memory of that night, the fear, the anger, the violation was carved into Marcus's mind, not as a wound anymore, but as a reason he would never stop protecting his family and this community. Ava ran back to him, breathless, Daddy, come play. Marcus lifted her into the air, her laughter echoing across the street. Danielle laughed with them, snapping a photo of father and daughter in the warm porch light. Behind them, the once toxic HOA office sat empty, waiting for its new beginning. A beginning led by a black man they once tried to push out. A beginning built not on fear but fairness. A beginning earned by fighting back, not with fists but with truth, patience, and courage. Magnolia Ridge had changed forever. Because one family refused to leave. And the neighborhood would never forget their names. The Carters didn't just survive Magnolia Ridge. They rebuilt it. And they made it better for everyone.